In the middle of the battlefield with flames, a tired man is seen holding his sword with the last of his strength. His breath is labored, exhausted from the heavy battle he is facing. His eyes stared sharply, focused on one view in front of him, and his mind spun thinking about how to get out of this dangerous situation, while saying this is the boss of a dungeon with a high level of difficulty. And this is the figure of danger that is in front of him. A red dragon monster without wings named Sibarumis with level 67. Its body is 10 times larger than the size of a human, with red scales that emit fire, burning the surrounding area and creating heat for anyone who approaches it. In front of him, the party led by the knight seemed helpless. Let alone fighting, they couldn't even stand up straight and withstand the heat produced by the dragon. While they were exhausted, the dragon prepared to attack. A hot fireball gathered in its mouth. It was as if the dragon was going to end the battle with this deadly attack. The female mage worriedly shouted, "The attack is coming!" And the tanker replied in resignation, "I don't know if my defense skill can withstand it this time." In the midst of a situation that determines the fate of their survival, the old knight was shocked by what he saw and said, "That's... huh." In front of him a bare foot landed. It was green and looked small, but it seemed unaffected by the heat of the fire surrounding the battlefield. The dragon Sibarumis had finished gathering its attack power. A red light mixed with yellow shone at the tip of its mouth, and it turned out to be a goblin figure with a small body holding a wooden club in his hand that suddenly appeared, standing upright in front of the dragon who was preparing to launch his powerful attack. With enthusiasm, the goblin looked towards the dragon and licked the club he was carrying while saying, Instantly, the dragon spewed out a fireball from its mouth, followed by a long breath of fire that continued to shoot forward, burning the terrain and its surroundings with hot air. But the goblin nimbly avoided the powerful attack while approaching the dragon. With a more enthusiastic and condescending expression, he shouted again, "Kie!" At the same time, a fast and powerful attack that split the air with a blue light was launched by the goblin towards the dragon while extinguishing the fire in front of him. They couldn't process what they saw. Then the leader said, That's insane. It cut down. No, it crushed the dragon." It was seen that the giant dragon's body that was hit by the small goblin's attack was now only half. The party members who were struggling to fight with all their strength said, "The goblin killed Sibarumis with one attack." In their minds they wondered, a monster attacking another monster? And they think, what kind of monster is this that was summoned? As they were all digesting what had happened, the old knight broke their reverie by pointing up and saying, "Look up there! There's someone!" With a wide smile and his tongue sticking out showing an expression of great satisfaction, he looked towards the party. And it turned out he was the one who summoned the strong goblin. Then we are brought back to the real world. A construction worker is seen lifting cement under a clear sky in a construction area. With a tired expression, he asks someone, "Where do I put this?" He is our Mick, a weak young man who is poor and has hopes of becoming rich so he can change his fate. Instead of an answer, he got a chat from someone who said, "Did something good happen to him?" He's actually smiling while working. After putting the cement he was carrying, he decided to take a short break after a day of work. In the middle of his reverie during his break, he pondered his fate. He likened himself to a goblin. A weak goblin who was in the lower level of the dungeon. No matter how hard he tried, he would not be able to achieve his dream because he was just a goblin. He continued to ponder his sad life with an expression of exhaustion from working all day. And when he complained about his fate, his focus shifted to the conversation of two other workers who were busy warming their bodies in front of the fireplace. One of them said, "Did you hear about Mr. Cha?" Continued, "They say he's been so busy playing Heaven's Door that he hasn't turned up for work." Something along the lines of him getting a hidden class. Hearing the chat, his mind drifted to the world of the game, Heaven's Door, a real virtual game that is currently trending, where players can feel the same experience as the real world. Even the pain and all the touches, as if we were really living in that world. All the technology used is very sophisticated. When playing, we fall asleep in a capsule that contains a mattress inside. And once we start, we will really enter the game world. However, even with such sophisticated technology, this game can be played even by our poor Mick. Because the cheap cost of internet cafes is the reason for the ease of access to play it. And not without reason this game is trending. One of the biggest reasons is because money from the real world begins to flow along with high demand and many players. Items in this game also begin to become currency and exchange rates in the real world. That's why Heaven's Door really becomes one of the games that changes fate for its players both in the game world and in the real world. While contemplating and thinking about his life again, the MC began to consider pursuing this game. He was determined to change his fate in the world of the game Heaven's Door. Now we are taken to the game world where the MC is launching one of his skills while shouting, "Take this, my ultimate move." He spun the weapon he was holding and it turned out to be a stone mining tool. With his powerful attack he destroyed the rock in front of him until it was crushed and scattered. A notification board appeared informing, "Skill, strike rock," followed by another notification, "You have obtained 3 times." However, a moment later, he could not contain his annoyance. With an angry expression while holding his head, he shouted in frustration, "Gosh, this is so dumb. After all grinding, now I have to grindy even more? Even here, I'm drowning in debt." Misfortune and bad luck always surround him. With a sad face and tears in his eyes, he grumbled in annoyance, "Where's the part where I become a legendary hero, date a gorgeous party member, and end up getting married?" His babbling stopped suddenly when his hand held a sparkling green crystal and a system. Notification message appeared, "Advanced healing crystal." With enthusiasm, he said, "Holy crap." His complaint was replaced with joy. He imagined this crystal, if sold, would be equivalent to 300,000 won. With a scary, silly face while licking the green crystal, he said, "This is it. This is why I mine." He was so happy that he laughed out loud, while he was celebrating the fruits of his labor. Suddenly, a woman approached him and said, "Wait, is that?" With a frozen expression and her tongue still licking the green crystal, she glanced at the woman silly. He muttered to himself, a woman? And she is pretty." The beautiful woman was seen with her party members. One well-proportioned man with typical assassin clothes and another one carrying a large hammer who looked like a dwarf. The beautiful woman gently asked, "You have been mining here every day, so your mining skill must be quite high." Then the MC answered coldly, "Yeah, sort of. What's going on?" It turned out that their party was planning to recruit the Mick to join. The woman explained, "We're running through this dungeon, but the massive rock blocking the path, our party members, while they're big, are totally clueless about mining. We're hoping that a skilled miner such as yourself could help." But instead he replied with a silly expression, doubting the words the dwarf had said earlier. Annoyed by the MC's behavior, the dwarf replied by grumbling, "Oh, so you assume that, just because I'm a dwarf, I'm good at mining?" He stares dramatically at the dwarf's hammer and stocky build. The dwarf said again, "Ah, so dwarves are only good for mining? They can't even help in a battle, so they should just die?" After that conversation, the MC lowered his head while covering his mouth and said in his mind, "If I joined their party, I could share EXP and maybe get some high-level ores. IT's not a bad D," but in the middle of his consideration, the shadow of the danger he would face haunted him. He asked himself, "But will I really be safe that deep within a dungeon?" Suddenly he remembered something, "Even though I can revive after dying in this game, but in this game there's that." Suddenly, his daydream was broken because he got a soft touch from the beautiful woman's hand. The woman said softly, "I'm sorry." The MC was shocked by what he experienced, and unconsciously he answered quickly, "I do," but after he realized what he had said in his heart, he said, "Acclamus." Then, the scene shifted. He was deep in a dungeon. Now, a gray Volf leaves 7 right in front of him. He said, "The monster's level was lower than expected." But he cursed it under his breath. His level was still lower than theirs. Surrounded by the wolves, he braced himself. One lunged straight at him, jaws wide and glowing with a red aura. He called out to his mother in desperation. The white-haired woman shouted at him not to move. As flames erupted around them, a system notification appeared, displaying, "Skill, Salamander Flame." The numbers of damage dealt began appearing rapidly, emphasizing the impact of the skill. The notif system display, Catherine Lee, a level 39 magician, rushed over and asked with concern if he was okay and whether he was hurt. He nodded and replied that he was fine, all thanks to her help. Deep down, he was still in awe she had wiped out the entire Grey Wolf pack in a single blow. She was incredibly strong. Looking at him with worry in her eyes, Catherine said he had really scared her. She pleaded with him not to leave her side again, saying it was too dangerous. He froze at her words. In his mind, he wondered, did she really want him to stay by her side forever? Could this finally be the pink romance route he had always wanted? As one of Catherine's party members engaged in battle against a pack of wolves, he told his enemies there was no need to be so surprised. He stated that they weren't the kind of people who would waste time playing around in a dungeon like this. Then, without hesitation, he drew his sword and executed a wide, sweeping attack. The powerful technique known as giant wheel swing struck multiple enemies at once, dealing heavy damage and scattering the wolves around him. After the battle, he stood calmly among the remains of his foes and commented on a suspicious ore that could only be broken with a high mining level. He explained that they had come to investigate what might be inside. In the past, they had been forced to ignore such resources because they had no choice. Putting points into grindy skills like mining had always seemed like a waste to them. Meanwhile, the MC, who was now being looked down upon by the others, he was told that people like him were now needed. Confused and a little insulted, he wondered what exactly was meant by people like him. His inner thoughts spiraled. Was he being treated like an idiot? He couldn't believe they were implying they needed his help now, especially when they couldn't even mine the ore without him. Frustrated but unable to ignore the insult, he turned to the speaker and challenged the implication, asking if they really thought he didn't have any combat skills. With a determined expression, he grabbed his pickaxe and approached the massive stone in front of him. Letting out a shout, he swung the pickaxe with all his might. In his frustration, he admitted the painful truth: he really didn't have any combat skills, not a single one. Cursing his situation, he struck the rock again and again, venting his anger with each hit. As the group delved deeper into the dungeon, the brown-haired man turned to the dwarf and asked, "Anyway, are you sure the info you bought is correct?" He eyed him sharply. "If there's nothing beyond that ore, the losses would be huge." The dwarf, clearly under pressure, muttered, "It better be." The man's expression darkened. "Otherwise, you'll pay for wasting my time in this crap dungeon." Meanwhile, the MC swung his pickaxe with frustration, getting looked down on and risking my life for pocket change. He gritted his teeth and continuing, "I'm so used to it that I'm not even mad anymore, and that's what pisses me off. Boring day," he shouted as the wall shattered from the impact. The ground cracked violently, and from behind the rubble, a grand door slowly revealed itself. "This is," he stammered, stunned, "a hidden dungeon?" The brown-haired man was equally shocked. "No way. We found a hidden dungeon?" Excitement surged through the dwarf. "We could get special rewards and even change our class to a hidden one. We've hit the jackpot," he exclaimed. But the woman with silver hair raised an eyebrow and smirked. "We?" Driven by dreams of success, the dark-haired man clenched his fist, eyes gleaming with determination. "Now I can turn my life around like Mr. Cha." Suddenly the system prompt flashed, PK mode activated. With a war cry, he charged forward, only to be violently slammed into the ground, a damage number flashing over him, -480. "Q," he groaned. "Damn it, I can't breathe." As he struggled to move, the others began chatting casually behind him. "Damn it, it's so hard to find this hidden dungeon," one of them said. "In a low-level area, no less," added the red-dressed woman. "And all you need is some dumb mining skill to even access it?" He listened in realization dawning. "Don't be bitter about this," the burly man said mockingly. "We did all the fighting and you just tagged along, didn't you?" His thoughts raced. So they're the ones who attacked me? Cowards! They knew about the hidden dungeon from the start. The brown hair man said, "You knew?" "Of course we did, moron. You think we'd waste time here for fun?" Then his tone grew colder. "But you helped a little, so I'll make it quick for you." With brutal force, he was hurled into the air, his body flung like a ragdoll as shadows closed in around him. When he realized he was still inside the dungeon, he wondered why they hadn't killed him and considered the possibility that they might have had some decency. Then he noticed the shattered remains of the healing crystal. It was an advanced healing crystalline item that revived a player with full health when their HP hit 0. He realized what had actually happened. He had died and then been revived by the crystal. He cried out in frustration, lamenting the loss of the 300,000 won he had spent on it. He cursed over his money. Looking up, he saw that the hidden dungeon door remained open. That meant the dungeon had not yet been cleared. Determined, he refused to back down after losing his healing crystal. He dragged himself forward, vowing to crash the party and turn his life around. He swore to those who had looked down on him that he would become their worst nightmare. As he charged ahead, he told the hidden dungeon to wait right there. Without hesitation, he leapt in. While flying through the dark shaft, he cursed the sudden realization. "A stairs!" he yelled, just before crashing hard into the stone passageway. The system displayed his name Kim Chel-soo and noted his HP remaining 20. He concluded aloud, "This must be the hidden dungeon." In the hidden dungeon known as the Goblin Shrine, Kim found himself staring up at an enormous goblin seated smugly on a throne. He muttered, "It's so big," and questioned why a goblin was acting so smug just because it was sitting on a throne. Kim then thought to himself about the dungeon, a goblin shrine. Could goblins really be the only thing in this place? A hidden dungeon, he figured, should be a lot tougher than this. He wondered if this was all there was to a low-level hidden dungeon and concluded it was boring. As he walked through the eerie quiet of the shrine, he noted how silent everything had become. "It's too quiet," he said, then questioned aloud, "Where did the others go?" Suddenly, Kim stepped on something, prompting him to look down. He asked, "What is this?" Before realizing with horror that it was a fallen comrade. He gasped as the man screamed in agony. "Arg!" Looking at the injured figure, Kim recognized him. "That dwarf from earlier?" he said, confused and alarmed. "What the hell?" A message appeared from someone called Vupermedwerfi. "Can you use some revive skill?" To this, the dwarf responded weakly, "There's no such skill." Kim, standing beside him, wondered aloud, is he holding off pressing the revive button so he won't miss the hidden dungeon? He watched as something flew to the village and concluded, he's so greedy. A red warning screen flashed before Kim's eyes. "Warning. This is a high difficulty dungeon far beyond your level. Please exit the dungeon immediately." Kim stared at the alert, confused. "What?" A piercing scream cut through the air. He turned sharply in the direction of the voice, panic rising in his chest. "That voice is—" His eyes widened in horror as he saw a giant hand holding someone by the collar, their body limp and lifeless. Another person was gripped in the same massive hand and then slammed to the ground without mercy. Kim looked around at the eerie surroundings. Isn't this a goblin shrine? Before him emerged a grotesque, monstrous figure, pulsing with a red aura. Its name and level appeared before him. Geiger, level 80. Kim stood frozen in place as the towering creature stared him down.